I spent months planning the perfect 35th birthday dinner. But when my husband laughed in my face and called me crazy in front of everyone, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I did something way worse. And by the end of the night, he was the one begging me to stop. This is the story of how I turned humiliation into unstoppable power. Before we begin, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss how this ends. The perfect birthday. Until it wasn't. The reservation at the Oak Room was supposed to be the start of my new life. Instead, it became the night I finally saw the truth. I'd spent weeks planning every detail of my 35th birthday dinner. The gold balloons, the custom cake with delicate sugar flowers, the playlist of songs that reminded me of better days. It was all meant to feel like a celebration. Not just of another year, but of me. Of the woman I used to be before corporate meetings and mortgage payments, and the slow, suffocating weight of my marriage dulled the edges of who I was. The guest list was small, just my closest friends, my sister, and Daniel's boss, Mr. Hartman, who I'd strategically invited after Daniel mentioned a promotion was coming. I even wore the emerald green dress Daniel always said made me look expensive, though the compliment had long since stopped feeling like one. He was late, of course. 30 minutes late, to be exact, and when he finally slid into the seat beside me, his tie was loosened, his cheeks slightly flushed. The scent of whiskey clung to him, layered over something else, something floral and unfamiliar. "Traffic," he muttered, pressing a dry kiss to my cheek before reaching for his wineglass. I forced a smile, the way I always did. "You made it. That's what matters." The lie tasted bitter. Dinner was a blur of small talk and half-hearted laughter. Daniel barely looked at me, his attention flickering between his phone and Mr. Hartman, his laugh a little too loud at his boss's jokes. I kept waiting for him to notice the cake, the playlist, the way I tucked his favorite appetizer onto his plate without being asked. But his eyes never lingered on me long enough to see any of it. Then came the toast. My hands shook as I stood, clinking my fork against my champagne flute. The table quieted, all eyes turning toward me. "I know birthdays are supposed to be about looking back," I began, "but this year I want to talk about the future." I hesitated, then took a breath. This was the moment. The one I'd rehearsed in the shower, in the car, in the mirror when Daniel wasn't home. I'd decided to leave Hartman and Pierce. A beat of silence. Then Mia, my best friend since college, grinned. "Finally! You've been miserable there for years." I laughed, relief loosening my shoulders. "I'm going to open a bakery. A real one. Not just cupcakes for friends' parties. A full menu, maybe even a cafe." The table erupted in cheers. My sister clapped. Mr. Hartman raised his glass. "Chicago could use more entrepreneurs like you," he said warmly. And then Daniel snorted. Not a chuckle. Not a laugh. A sharp, derisive sound that cut through the celebration like a knife. "You! A baker!" He smirked, swirling his whiskey. "Babe, you burn toast. Stick to PowerPoints." The table went dead silent. My face burned. My throat tightened. For a second, I couldn't breathe, and then my phone buzzed in my lap. I glanced down, desperate for any distraction. The notification made my stomach drop. A text. From Elena, my college roommate. The woman Daniel had sworn was just a friend after I found their messages 2 years ago. The woman he'd supposedly cut ties with. The preview read, "Saw your hubby at the Lux last night. Still lying about his conferences." Attached was a photo. Daniel, his arms slung around a blonde at a hotel bar, wearing the tie I'd bought him for our anniversary. The date stamp, yesterday. The same day he claimed he was at a team-building retreat. My vision blurred. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the hum of the restaurant, it all faded into a dull roar. And then I remembered. My phone wasn't just buzzing with texts. It was still recording. Because earlier, while I'd been pacing my office and practicing my "I'm quitting" speech, I'd opened my voice memo app. I'd wanted to hear how it sounded out loud. I'd never hit stop, which meant every word Daniel had just said, every dismissive, belittling syllable had been captured. I looked up. Daniel was already back to schmoozing Mr. Hartman, as if he hadn't just gutted me in front of everyone I loved. My fingers tightened around my phone. That's when I noticed the AirDrop icon. And the list of available devices. Every iPhone at the table, Daniel's, Mr. Hartman's, Mia's, was right there. Waiting. One tap. That's all it would take. One tap, and everyone would hear exactly what he'd said. I took a slow sip of champagne, my pulse roaring in my ears. Then I smiled. The recording that changed everything. My fingers hovered over the screen, the weight of what I was about to do pressing against my ribs like a physical thing. One tap. That's all it would take. One tap, and every person at this table would hear the disdain in Daniel's voice, the casual cruelty he'd hidden behind for years. But then, Lila! Mia's voice cut through my thoughts. Her hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. You okay? I blinked, forcing my gaze away from my phone. Mia's dark eyes were full of quiet concern, the way they'd been since college whenever she could tell I was about to spiral. Fine, I lied, plastering on that smile again, the one I'd perfected over 7 years of marriage. The one that said everything's wonderful when nothing was. Across the table, Daniel was deep in conversation with Mr. Hartman, his back half turned to me. I caught snippets, her little baking phase, and back to reality soon enough, each word another paper cut. My thumb moved before I could second-guess myself. AirDrop. Select all. Send. The little whoosh sound effect seemed deafening in my ears. For 3 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, a soft ping from Mia's purse, a chime from Mr. Hartman's jacket pocket. Daniel's phone, face up on the table, lit up with a notification. Accept file from Lila's iPhone. My breath caught. This was it. No going back. Mia frowned, pulling out her phone. Did you just? Then the audio started playing. First from Mia's phone, tinny and quiet. Then Mr. Hartman's, louder as he fumbled to lower the volume. Then, horrifyingly, Daniel's, blaring at full volume when he instinctively hit accept without looking. His own voice filled the space between us, sharp and mocking. You? A baker? Babe, you burn toast. Stick to PowerPoints. The entire table froze. Daniel's head snapped up, his face draining of color as he realized what was happening. Lila, what the hell? But it was too late. The recording kept playing, capturing the exact moment the table had gone silent, the way his laugh had cut through the celebration like a knife. And then, because fate has a cruel sense of timing, the next part played. Her little baking phase. Daniel's voice continued, clearly speaking to Mr. Hartman now. Don't worry, she'll be back to reality soon enough. Probably just hormones or something. The silence that followed was absolute. Mr. Hartman slowly set down his fork. The intern Daniel had been flirting with all evening. Sophie, I remembered, gaped openly. My sister's mouth had fallen slightly open. And Mia looked like she was about to commit murder. Daniel stood, so fast his chair screeched. That's enough. He reached for my phone, but I was quicker, snatching it away. Interesting, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Because from where I'm sitting, this sounds exactly like reality. Mr. Hartman cleared his throat. Daniel! Just one word, but the disapproval in it made Daniel flinch. My office. First thing Monday. Daniel's jaw worked. I could see the calculations flashing behind his eyes. Damage control, excuses, ways to spin this. But there was no spinning that recording. No pretending it was taken out of context. Then his phone buzzed again. Then Mia's. Then Sophie's. Because I'd sent the second file, the photo from Elena. Daniel's face went slack when he saw it. This isn't, Lila, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said, standing now too. My knees shook, but my voice didn't. The question is, does everyone else? I didn't wait for an answer. I grabbed my purse and walked out. The sound of Daniel sputtering behind me, the murmurs of our friends, the beginnings of what would undoubtedly be the most talked-about birthday dinner in our social circle for years to come. The Chicago air hit my face like a slap as I pushed through the restaurant doors. It was raining, a cold, biting rain that soaked through my dress almost immediately. I didn't care. Behind me, I heard the doors swing open again. Footsteps. Lila! God damn it! Lila, stop! Daniel's hand closed around my arm, spinning me around. His face was a mask of fury and panic, rainwater dripping from his hair. What the fuck was that? Do you have any idea what you just did to me? I wrenched my arm free. To you. A laugh bubbled up, hysterical and sharp. You humiliated me in front of our friends, in front of your boss on my birthday. And you're worried about what I did to you. You're being irrational. No, I cut him off. I'm finally being honest. A car pulled up then, Mia's Tesla, her face grim behind the wheel. She leaned over and pushed the passenger door open. Get in, she called. Daniel grabbed for me again. We're not done here. I stepped back out of reach. Oh, we're done. Then I got in the car and didn't look back. As Mia pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed. Not with another text from Daniel, with a notification from my bank. Joint account. Low balance alert. $20,000 missing. And just like that, the night went from bad to worse. The missing money. Rain streaked the car windows as Mia merged onto Lakeshore Drive, the city lights blurring into smears of gold against the dark. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The bank alert glared up at me from my phone screen like an accusation. Talk to me, Mia said, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. What just happened back there? I opened my mouth, but all that came out was a choked sound. Half laugh, half sob. Where did I even begin? The humiliation, the recording, the photo of Daniel with that woman, or the $20,000 that had apparently vanished from our joint account without my knowledge. Mia's phone buzzed in the cup holder. Then mine again. Then hers once more. A rapid-fire volley of notifications, lighting up the dark interior of the car. The group chat's exploding, Mia muttered, glancing at her screen. Sophie just sent 10 crying laughing emojis and, oh wow. What? Mr. Hartman just replied all with, this meeting could have been an email. She snorted. Pretty sure Daniel's promotion just died. I should have felt something, vindication, maybe, or at least satisfaction. But all I could focus on was that number. $20,000. Nearly our entire savings. I opened the banking app with trembling fingers, pulling up the transaction history. There, 3 days ago. A wire transfer to an account I didn't recognize. No memo. No explanation. Just our money gone. Something's wrong, I said, my voice sounding far away. Daniel took money. A lot of money. Mia's eyebrows shot up. How much is a lot? I turned the screen toward her. Her sharp inhale told me everything I needed to know. Okay, she said, switching lanes with sudden determination. We're going to my place. You're getting dry clothes. Then we're figuring this out. Mia's condo smelled like lavender and the ghost of last night's takeout. She tossed me a pair of sweatpants and an old college hoodie while she plugged my phone into her charger. First things first, she said, opening her laptop at the kitchen island. Let's see where that money went. I sank onto a stool, the hoodie swallowing me whole. It smelled faintly of fabric softener and safety, a stark contrast to the storm raging in my chest. Mia pulled up some website I didn't recognize, fingers flying across the keyboard. What's the account number it was sent to? I read it off my phone. She typed, waited, then let out a low whistle. It's a shell company, she said, rotating the screen toward me. Registered in Delaware. Basically untraceable unless. Unless what? Unless you have a lawyer who can subpoena the records. She chewed her lip, which, given tonight's events, I'm guessing you'll have soon. My stomach lurched. A lawyer. Divorce. The word made it all suddenly, terrifyingly real. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Again. The 12th missed call since we'd left the restaurant. You should listen to the voicemails, Mia said quietly. I shook my head. Not yet. Because what if he had an explanation? What if there was some reasonable, logical reason he'd taken $20,000 and lied about it? And what if, worse, I actually believed him? Mia's fridge hummed in the silence. Outside, the rain had turned to sleet, ticking against the windows like a countdown. Then my phone buzzed with a new notification. Not a call or text. A calendar alert. Mortgage payment due tomorrow. I nearly laughed. Of course. The universe wasn't done kicking me while I was down. I pulled up our other accounts, dread pooling in my gut. The checking account was nearly empty. The savings, the one that should have held our emergency fund, had a balance of $87.43. Jesus, Mia breathed, reading over my shoulder. He cleaned you out. A thought struck me then, cold and sharp. The bakery money. 4 months, I'd been stashing away small amounts, $50 here, $100 there, in a separate account Daniel didn't know about. My escape fund, I jokingly called it. I logged in, heart pounding. Still there. All $3,672 of it. Not enough to start a business. Barely enough to rent an apartment. But something. Mia's hand closed over mine. You're staying here tonight. Tomorrow we call a lawyer. And a locksmith. A locksmith. To change your locks, she said, like it was obvious. Because that man is not stepping foot in your house again until a judge says he can. The finality of it hit me like a punch. No more shared home. No more shared life. Just lawyers and paperwork and the hollowed-out remains of a marriage I'd somehow missed was rotting from the inside out. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email notification. From Elena. The subject line, "You should see what else I found." I looked at Mia. She looked back, eyes wide. "Open it," she whispered. I did. Attached were screenshots. Text messages between Daniel and someone named Jay. Dates going back 6 months. Talk of investments. Of big returns. Of something called Blue Horizon Holdings. And then the kicker. Daniel, it's not stealing if I pay it back before she notices. Daniel, and I will pay it back. This deal is guaranteed. Jay, and if it's not? Daniel, then I'll make her think she authorized the withdrawal. You know how she is with numbers. The room tilted. Mia's grip on my hand tightened. Oh my God! I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All I could see was that word, stealing. In his own words. In writing. The phone rang again. Daniel. Again. This time I answered. Lila. Thank God, he gasped, voice ragged. You need to come home right now. We need to talk about. I saw the messages, Daniel. My voice didn't even sound like mine. I know you stole from me. Silence. Then. It's not what you think. I almost laughed. Really? Because it looks exactly like what I think. It looks like theft. It looks like fraud. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Lower, harder. The real Daniel, maybe, slipping through the cracks of his carefully constructed facade. Listen to me very carefully, he said, each word measured. You will not go to the police. You will not call a lawyer. You will come home right now, and we will handle this like adults. Mia was shaking her head violently, mouthing no, no, no. Ordinarily, that tone would have worked. That quiet, commanding threat that always made me fold. But not tonight. Or what, Daniel? I challenged. A beat. Then. Or I'll tell everyone about your little breakdown sophomore year. About the pills. About how unstable you really are. His voice turned sickeningly sweet. Who do you think they'll believe, Lila? The hysterical woman with a history of mental problems? Or me? The line went dead. Mia snatched the phone from my limp fingers. That son of a bitch. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Because he was right, he could ruin me. Our entire social circle, our professional networks, they'd all choose his word over mine. I'd seen it happen too many times to other women. Mia was suddenly in front of me, gripping my shoulders. Hey! Look at me. Her eyes burned with fury. We are going to destroy him. Outside, the sleet turned to snow, the first of the season. Appropriate, somehow. The end of one thing. The beginning of something else entirely. I took a deep breath. Where do we start? The paper trail. The snow fell heavier as Mia and I hunched over her kitchen island, the glow of her laptop casting long shadows across our faces. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the screenshots Elena had sent, each message from Daniel more damning than the last. She'll never notice the missing money. Just forge her signature if the bank asks. Lila's too distracted with her little baking fantasy to check the accounts. Mia slammed her palm on the counter. This is textbook financial abuse. We need to call a lawyer now. I chewed my bottom lip raw. Daniel's threat echoed in my skull. Hysterical woman with a history of mental problems. He'd weaponized my darkest moment, the breakdown I'd had after my father's death 10 years ago, back when Daniel was the one who'd held me through the panic attacks. Now he'd use it to paint me as unstable, unreliable. My phone buzzed with another notification. Our mortgage payment had bounced. Of course it had. Our joint account was empty. I need to get into the house, I said suddenly. All my bakery sketches, my recipe notebooks, they're in the office. And my grandmother's mixing bowls. Mia's eyes narrowed. Text Sophie. She's still at the restaurant with Mr. Hartman. Ask if Daniel left yet. Sophie replied instantly. He's arguing with the valet about his car keys. Looks like Mr. H made him pay the whole bill. Karma's a bitch. Smiley face. Want me to keep watching him? A plan crystallized. Tell her to text when he leaves. I'm going in. Mia opened her mouth to protest, but I was already shrugging on my still damp coat. If I wait until morning, he might destroy evidence. Or change the locks first. The drive back to our Lincoln Park brownstone felt surreal. Every familiar landmark, the corner Starbucks where Daniel always forgot my coffee order, the dog park where we pretended we'd get a golden retriever someday, now looked like props in a life that had never been real. Sophie's text came as I parallel parked. He just left, heading west on Armitage. Go, go, go. The house was dark when I let myself in. The scent of Daniel's cologne hung in the air, mingling with the vanilla candle I'd left burning that morning. A normal Tuesday night in another universe. I moved quickly. The filing cabinet, where we kept tax returns. I yanked open the investments folder. Empty. Daniel's desk drawer, the one he always kept locked. A letter opener made quick work of the flimsy mechanism. Inside, a stack of wire transfer receipts to Blue Horizon Holdings. The safe, hidden behind a framed photo of our wedding. My fingers shook as I spun the dial. Our anniversary date, of course. The door swung open to reveal. Empty, except for one item. A single key on a fob with a logo, the Lux Hotel and Residences. The same hotel from Elena's photo. My stomach twisted. How many nights had Daniel claimed he was working late while staying here? I pocketed the key, just as my phone lit up with an incoming call. Unknown number. I answered warily. Hello, Mrs. Carter. A man's voice, crisp and professional. This is Andrew Pierce from Hartman and Pierce. I'm calling because... My breath caught. Daniel's law firm. Because we've just received some troubling information regarding your husband's handling of client funds. The world tilted. Client funds? Pierce continued. Mr. Hartman asked me to reach out discreetly. Would you be available to meet tomorrow morning? With any documentation you might have regarding Daniel's extracurricular activities. A hysterical laugh bubbled up. Daniel hadn't just stolen from me. 9 a.m. I managed. And Mr. Pierce? Bring a forensic accountant. I hung up and made one final stop, the kitchen. My grandmother's mixing bowls sat in their usual cabinet, but the recipe box was gone. The one containing every Carter family secret passed down for generations. The one Daniel had mocked for years. You really think people will pay for cookies made from some dead woman's scribbles? The front door creaked open. Lila! Daniel's voice echoed down the hallway. I know you're here. Your car's out front. I froze. The recipe box forgotten. The hotel key burning in my pocket. Footsteps approached. Then, the unmistakable sound of the safe door swinging on its hinges. A beat of silence. You bitch! Daniel snarled. I didn't wait. I moved on pure instinct. Out the back door into the alley, the snow stinging my face as I ran. Sophie's car screeched to a curb just as Daniel burst onto the street behind me. Drive! I gasped, slamming the passenger door. As we peeled away, my phone buzzed with a new email notification. The sender, the Lux Hotel and Residences. The subject line, your reserve storage unit access code. Attached was an invoice for Unit 214, paid through the end of the year. In Daniel's name. Sophie glanced at me, eyes wide. Where to now? I tightened my grip on the hotel key. Somewhere with better room service. The Lux unlocking. Rainwater dripped from the Lux Hotel's awning as Sophie and I stood under its glowing porte-cochere, the valets eyeing my wrinkled dress and wild hair with barely concealed judgment. The doorman moved to block our entry until Sophie flashed her platinum Amex with a saccharine smile. Reservation under Carter. I lied, fingers curling around the key in my pocket. The lobby smelled like money, bergamot and marble polish. My wet flats squeaked against the checkerboard floor as we beelined for the elevators. Act like you belong here, Sophie muttered, punching the button for the 21st floor. The storage units. The elevator door slid shut just as a concierge called after us. Sophie held up her phone. just grabbing my boss's golf clubs. My pulse hammered as the numbers climbed. What the hell was Daniel keeping here? More stolen money. Evidence of other affairs. The missing recipe box. Unit 214 was at the end of a dimly lit hallway. The key slid in smoothly. The metal door rolled up with a rattle, revealing a fucking apartment, Sophie breathed. Not a storage unit. A fully furnished studio, complete with a wet bar and city views. The bed was unmade. A half-empty bottle of my favorite Pinot Noir sat on the nightstand. The same vintage Daniel had claimed was sold out when I'd asked for it last month. But it was the wall that made my knees buckle. Dozens of bakery sketches, my sketches, pinned up like some deranged vision board. The very designs I doodled in margins of notebooks, the ones Daniel had called cute but impractical. Here, they were annotated in his handwriting. Market analysis, $120,000 first-year revenue potential. Patent this layout before she does. Source commercial mixers here. Sophie sucked in a breath. He wasn't just stealing your money. He was stealing your dream. I stumbled to the sleek desk in the corner. The laptop there blinked to life without a password, Daniel's arrogance on full display. The open tabs told the story. Blue Horizon Holdings, LLC, Articles of Incorporation. Commercial lease agreement, 12,000 square foot River North space. Pastry chef recruitment ads, posted 2 weeks ago. My vision tunneled. He'd been planning this for months. Stealing my ideas. My recipes. My life. A folder labeled Lila contained scanned pages from my recipe box. Every card painstakingly digitized. At the bottom of the stack, a contract draft. Buyout agreement. In exchange for $25,000 and signed NDA, Lila Carter relinquishes all claims to wildflower concept, recipes, and intellectual property. The date, tomorrow. He was going to pay me off, I whispered. A fraction of what he'd stolen. A pittance to own my family's legacy. Sophie was already taking photos with her phone. This is gold. We need to. The elevator dinged down the hall. We froze. Footsteps. Then Daniel's voice, sharp with anger. Told you she's clever. Check the security feeds again. Sophie yanked me into the closet, just as the unit door banged open. Through the slats, I watched Daniel pace, phone pressed to his ear. His suit was rumpled, hair standing up where he'd clearly been running his hands through it. Of course I'll pay the fucking retainer, he snapped. Just keep her away from the... He stopped dead. Stared at the laptop. Someone had closed it. His head swiveled toward the closet. Sophie's hand clamped over my mouth. Daniel took a step forward. Then his phone rang. What? He barked. Then quieter. Pierce? How the hell did you get this number? A beat. His face went ashen. You what? No, listen. Those transfers were authorized. She. Another pause. His free hand gripped the desk edge. Fine. But this conversation isn't over. He slammed the laptop shut and bolted from the unit. We waited 10 full seconds before exhaling. Who's Pierce? Sophie whispered. I pulled up the email from earlier. Daniel's law partner. And I think he just turned on him. My phone buzzed. A new email from Mr. Hartman himself. Subject, urgent meeting. Lila, come to the firm at 8 a.m. Bring everything you found. We'll handle the rest. Attached was a single PDF, a frozen assets order for all accounts under Daniel Carter's name. Sophie grinned. Looks like someone's about to get a taste of his own medicine. I looked around at the stolen dreams surrounding us, the sketches, the recipes, the life Daniel had tried to carve out of my bones. Then I opened the wine bottle and took a long, deliberate swig. Let's burn it all down. The reckoning. The Hartman and Pierce offices smelled like leather and impending justice. I arrived at 7:45 a.m. wearing Mia's borrowed blazer and last night's smudged eyeliner like war paint. My purse contained every piece of evidence we'd gathered, the hotel key, photos of Daniel's secret apartment, screenshots of his texts, and the damning financial records. Mr. Hartman met me in the lobby himself, his usually impeccable suit wrinkled from what looked like an all-nighter. Lila, he said by way of greeting, steering me toward the elevators. I want you to know, this firm does not tolerate theft, especially from our own clients. The conference room held 3 surprises. Andrew Pierce, the managing partner, nursing what appeared to be his 4th coffee. A forensic accountant named Priya, whose smile could curdle milk. Daniel, slumped in a chair looking like he'd been dragged through hell. He launched to his feet when I entered. "Lila, baby." "Mr. Carter," Pierce cut in. "You will speak only when addressed." What followed was 2 hours of brutal dissection. Priya presented a flowchart showing how Daniel had funneled $217,000 from client escrow accounts into Blue Horizon Holdings. Mr. Hartman played security footage of Daniel accessing the Lux apartment with a blonde who was definitely not me. I silently slid the scanned recipe cards across the table. The final blow came from Pierce. "We've already filed disbarment proceedings. The State Bar tends to frown on attorneys who steal from widows' trust funds." Daniel's chair screeched as he stood. "You're ruining my life over some cookie recipes?" The room went quiet. Priya broke the silence. "Actually, we're ruining your life over embezzlement. The cookies are just poetic justice." By noon, the firm had frozen every asset in Daniel's name. A judge signed an order granting me exclusive use of our home. Mr. Hartman offered to cover my legal fees personally, but the real victory came at 12:37 p.m., when my phone buzzed with a notification. $217,892.14 deposited Blue Horizon Holdings LLC. Attached was an email from Priya. "Consider this an early investor buyout. The Lux apartment lease is in your name now, too. Happy baking." I stood on the firm's marble steps, breathing in the crisp Chicago air for what felt like the first time in years. Daniel emerged behind me, his tailored suit suddenly too big on his frame. "You think you've won," he hissed. "That money won't last forever. And neither will your little fantasy." I turned to face him fully, sunlight glinting off the Lux key in my hand. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what I was going to say to you." Then I walked away, for good this time, toward a black town car idling at the curb. The window rolled down to reveal Mia holding 2 Venti coffees and a bakery box. "Get in, loser," she said. "We've got a kitchen to raid." As we pulled away, I caught one last glimpse of Daniel in the rearview mirror. His perfect hair finally mussed, his golden boy facade cracked beyond repair. And for the first time in 7 years, I didn't look back. Wildflower Rising. The industrial kitchen of Lux's private apartment smelled like burning sugar and possibility. I stood amidst a storm of flour clouds and scattered mixing bowls, my grandmother's recipe cards spread across every available surface. Mia perched on the counter, licking vanilla bean frosting from a spatula while Sophie live-streamed our chaos to her 200K TikTok followers. "Say hi to Chicago's next top pastry chef," Sophie crowed, angling the camera toward where I was kneading dough with more aggression than strictly necessary. The comments exploded with heart-eye emojis and demands for a bakery name. "Wildflower," I said without looking up, pressing my thumbs into the dough. After my grandmother saying, "A wild heart grows where flower falls," Mia snorted. "Damn, Lila, when did you get poetic?" When I stopped letting Daniel edit me. The words hung in the air, sweet and sharp like the lemon zest I was grating. 3 days had passed since the showdown at Hartman and Pierce. 3 days of reporters calling for comments, of old friends sliding into my DMs with suddenly remembered loyalty, of discovering just how many women in this city had their own Daniel stories. My phone buzzed on the marble counter, another unknown number. I ignored it. The only calls I cared about right now were from contractors bidding on the River North space Priya's forensic accounting had magically made available. Sophie's phone rang instead. She answered, then immediately muted the mic. "Lila, it's Eater Chicago." I nearly dropped my mixing bowl. 5 minutes later, we had a food journalist arriving tomorrow to profile the woman who baked her way out of a nightmare. Sophie was already storyboarding Instagram reels while Mia scrolled through commercial oven listings. I should have been thrilled. This was everything I'd wanted. My bakery, my recipes, my life finally mine. So why were my hands shaking? The dough beneath my fingers suddenly felt alien. What if Daniel was right? What if I was just a PowerPoint girl playing chef? The apartment doorbell rang. Mia hopped down to check the monitor. "Ah, Lila." "There's a very angry blonde in the lobby demanding you return her shoes." We all froze. "The other woman?" Sophie whispered, already zooming her camera in on my face. I wiped flour-covered hands on my apron and pressed the intercom. Who are you? A staticky sigh came through. Elena, your ex-college roommate. Jesus, Lila, I've been texting you for days. Elena looked nothing like the villain I'd imagined. No vampy red nails or predatory smirk, just a tired woman in jeans holding a cardboard box. She thrust it at me the second the elevator doors opened. Here, your precious recipe box. Daniel gave it to me to hold on to like some creepy trophy. The familiar rosewood felt heavier than I remembered. I lifted the lid to find every card intact, including the stained one for Grandma's bourbon pecan pie that no one could replicate. Elena shifted uncomfortably. Look, about the hotel bar photo. You don't owe me explanations, I said, surprising myself. She blinked. I kinda do. Because that wasn't the first time. What followed was a confession, so cliché it hurt. Daniel had told her we were separated, that I was unstable, that our marriage had been over for years. He said you'd already signed divorce papers, Elena said, staring at her chipped nail polish. Showed me fake documents and everything. Mia made a strangled noise. Sophie's camera was definitely still rolling. I should have been furious, but all I felt was tired. Tired of Daniel taking up space in my head. Tired of giving him power he didn't earn. You hungry? I asked suddenly. Elena blinked. What? I gestured to the kitchen's destruction zone. I'm testing recipes. Need honest taste testers. A beat passed. Then, fuck yes, Elena said, following me inside. But I'm vetoing anything with raisins. By midnight, we'd consumed approximately 6 pounds of baked goods and 3 bottles of wine. The counters were dusted in powdered sugar like fresh snow, the air thick with the scent of browned butter and unexpected camaraderie. Sophie's TikTok video, when your husband's mistress becomes your baking consultant, had already gone viral. My phone kept pinging with follower alerts. Elena licked caramel sauce from her thumb. So when do we meet the lawyers? I paused. We. She and Mia exchanged a look. Yeah? Unless you don't want help proving Daniel defrauded me too. I've got receipts, girl. Sophie raised her wine glass. Team burn the patriarchy 1 cupcake at a time. I looked around at these women. My old friend, my new ally, the intern turned hype girl, all covered in flour and ready to fight for me. For us. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from the River North landlord. Space is yours. When can you sign? Outside, the Chicago skyline glittered, indifferent to the small lives playing out beneath it. Somewhere out there, Daniel was probably drowning his sorrows in overpriced scotch. Let him. I typed back one word. Tomorrow. Then I slid the phone away and reached for the last remaining recipe card, Grandma's famous triple chocolate rebellion cake. The one she only made when someone needed reminding of their own strength. All right, ladies, I said, cracking fresh eggs into a bowl. Let's get to work. The devil wears aprons. The River North space smelled like sawdust and potential. I ran my fingers along the freshly installed marble countertop, watching as workers bolted in the industrial ovens I'd purchased with the last of the Blue Horizon funds. The brick walls were being whitewashed to match my vision boards. The same ones Daniel had stolen now hung proudly above the pastry station, their edges slightly torn from when I'd ripped them off his wall. Sophie burst through the front door, her arms laden with fabric samples. The embroidered aprons came in. She held one up, wildflowers scripted in elegant gold thread, with tiny lemon blossoms trailing the pockets. Elena's idea about adding the flowers was genius. Speaking of Elena, she was currently in the back office negotiating with a coffee supplier, her sharp laughter occasionally drifting through the half-open door. 3 weeks had turned my husband's mistress into my business partner, a twist no one saw coming, least of all me. Mia dropped a stack of permits on the counter. Health inspections scheduled for Friday. Also, she hesitated, then slid a cream-colored envelope toward me. I knew that stationery. Daniel's lawyer. The letter inside was exactly what I expected, a demand for equitable division of marital assets, specifically citing intellectual property related to any food service ventures conceived during the marriage. My laugh startled the electrician installing our pendant lights. He wants my recipes. Mia's mouth flattened into a grim line. He's claiming they're community property, since you developed them while married. The spatula in my hand snapped cleanly in two. Elena appeared in the doorway, her phone pressed to her chest. "You guys need to see this." She turned her screen toward us, a local business blog featuring the headline. Former attorney Daniel Carter announces Flower Power bakery opening in Gold Coast. The blood drained from my face. There, in glossy promotional renderings, was my bakery layout, my signature caramel lattice design on the logo, even the damn lemon blossom motif. But the real gut punch, the tagline, recipes worth fighting for. Sophie made us sound like a tea kettle boiling over. That plagiarizing son of a... The front door chimed. We all turned as a deliveryman entered, holding an enormous floral arrangement. Lila Carter! The lilies reeked of funeral homes and false apologies. I yanked out the card before Mia could stop me. "Lila, let's talk business. You keep the apartment, I keep the recipes. Otherwise, my lawyers will bury you in discovery until your precious bakery is a memory." "You know I can." D. The paper crumpled in my fist. Elena plucked it from my fingers, her expression eerily calm. "You still have those scanned texts where he admitted to stealing?" I nodded. "The ones where he discussed forging your signature?" Another nod. She smiled, slow and dangerous. "Good. Because we're about to teach Daniel what real intellectual property theft looks like." Mia was already dialing. "Priya, we need that forensic accountant again. And maybe the FBI." Outside, the first autumn rain began to fall, washing the bakery windows clean. I stared at our distorted reflections in the glass, 4 women silhouetted against the storm. "Change of plans," I said, grabbing my laptop. "We're moving up the soft opening." Sophie blinked. "To when?" I pulled up the reservation system, my fingers flying across the keys. "Same day as Daniel's. Let's see whose recipes are really worth fighting for." Elena barked out a laugh. "You're evil." "No," I corrected, opening Grandma's recipe box. "I'm just done being sweet." The first test batch of our new signature item, karma tart with extra lemon, went into the oven as the lawyers began to circle. Let Daniel come for my recipes. He had no idea what I'd do to protect them. Battle of the Bakeries. The morning of November 15th dawned icy and bright, the kind of Chicago winter day that sparkled deceptively before cutting straight to the bone. I stood in the pre-dawn darkness of Wildflower's kitchen, watching my breath fog against the industrial fridge as I pulled out the first trays of croissants. The laminated dough had risen perfectly, each layer a testament to the 18-hour process that couldn't be rushed. Elena burst through the swinging doors, her cheeks flushed from the cold. The line's already around the block. And guess who's setting up a camera crew across the street? I didn't need to look to know. Daniel had taken out full-page ads in the Tribune all week, boasting about his artisanal revolution. His bakery, Flower Power, was opening precisely 1 hour before ours, a petty power play that would have gutted me a month ago. Now I rolled out dough for our secret weapon. "Are we really doing this?" Mia asked, tying on an apron with nervous fingers. She'd taken the day off work to help, though her legal pad filled with talking points suggested she was still in crisis management mode. I dusted flour across Grandma's bourbon pecan pie recipe, the one Daniel had mocked for years. "We're absolutely doing this." At exactly 8:03 a.m., the first scream echoed from the sidewalk. Sophie came sprinting back inside, her phone clutched in trembling hands. "It's happening. Look!" Her screen showed a live feed from Flower Power's grand opening. Daniel stood resplendent in a bespoke apron, his smile faltering as customers began spitting out samples into napkins. The comments scrolled wildly. "Tastes like Play-Doh. Is this a joke? $8 for this." Elena high-fived a pastry chef. "Told you substituting salt for sugar would work." I wiped my hands on my apron. "Let's open our doors." The next 6 hours passed in a blur of clattering plates and ringing cash registers. Every time the bell chimed, another wave of disappointed Flower Power customers flooded in, clutching their receipts like life rafts. "His croissants tasted like cardboard," a woman in cashmere wailed, cradling one of our pay-no chocolate like it was the Holy Grail. By noon, the local food blogger who'd promised Daniel a glowing review was Instagramming our lemon tarts with the caption, "The real Flower Power." At 1:17 p.m., the door slammed open hard enough to rattle the macaron display. Daniel stood framed in the doorway, his designer apron replaced with a rumpled suit, his usually perfect hair sticking up in angry tufts. The scent of burnt sugar clung to him. "You," he hissed, stalking toward the counter where I was boxing up a divorce cake for a giggling bachelorette party. The bakery went silent. Every phone in the room lifted to record. I wiped my hands deliberately on a dish towel. "Can I help you with something, Daniel? We're fresh out of failure, but I could whip some up special." His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist hard enough to leave marks. "You sabotaged me." Before I could respond, 3 things happened simultaneously. Elena emerged from the kitchen, wielding a rolling pin like a baton. Mia dialed 911 with one hand while shoving Daniel back with the other. Sophie's livestream viewer count quadrupled. I pried Daniel's fingers off me one by one. "I didn't sabotage you," I said calmly. "I simply stopped fixing your mistakes." The truth was almost sad. Daniel had never actually baked anything in his life. He'd relied on me to correct his measurements, to adjust oven temperatures, to taste test his disasters into something edible. Without me, his stolen recipes were just words on paper. A police siren wailed in the distance. Daniel's eyes darted to the cameras, to the customers whispering behind their hands, to the display case full of everything he'd failed to steal. "You'll regret this," he spat, but the threat rang hollow. I leaned across the counter, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "No, Daniel. The only thing I regret is ever letting you taste my recipes in the first place." The officers took him away for assault, though we all knew the real crime scene was across the street, where Flower Power's grand opening banner now hung at a defeated angle, the doors already locked. By closing time, we'd sold out of everything except one deliberately saved item. I boxed up the last karma tart with extra lemon and handed it to Elena. "For the road." She grinned, tucking it into her bag. "Nah, I've got a stop to make." I didn't ask where. Some things are better left to the imagination. As I flipped the open sign to closed, my phone buzzed with a notification. The Chicago Tribune alert I'd been waiting for. Disgraced attorney Daniel Carter surrenders law license amid embezzlement charges. Attached was a photo of him leaving the disciplinary hearing, his face buried in his hands. Mia came up behind me, resting her chin on my shoulder. "Happy." I looked around at the flour-dusted chaos of my thriving bakery, at the team of women who'd become my unlikely family, at the empty storefront across the street that would forever bear the invisible sign. "Here lies the ego of a man who underestimated us." I picked up a rag and began wiping down the counter, smiling at the stubborn streak of caramel that refused to be scrubbed away. Getting there. The sweetest revenge. December hit Chicago like a freight train, transforming the sidewalks outside Wildflower into obstacle courses of slush and determined holiday shoppers. Inside the bakery, the ovens hummed nonstop, filling the air with the scent of gingerbread and spiced cider. I was elbow-deep in peppermint buttercream when the bell above the door jingled. "Be right with you," I called, not looking up from piping perfect swirls onto a batch of Yolog cupcakes. "Take your time," a familiar male voice answered. My piping bag slipped, sending a rogue streak of pink across the counter. Mr. Hartman stood at the register, looking oddly out of place in his tailored overcoat amidst the bakery's whimsical decor. His sharp eyes took in every detail: the framed newspaper clippings about Daniel's downfall, the employee of the month photo of Elena flipping off the camera, the growing line of customers snaking out the door. "I'll have whatever's best," he said when I finally approached. I slid a plate across the counter with our signature item, the legal brief, a delicate puff pastry filled with dark chocolate ganache and a hint of cayenne. "On the house. Consider it a thank you." He took a bite, and for the first time in our decade-long acquaintance, I saw genuine surprise soften his features. "This is exceptional." The compliment warmed me more than the ovens ever could. Mr. Hartman wiped his fingers meticulously on a napkin. I came to deliver 2 pieces of news. First, he produced a check from his breast pocket. "Your share of the settlement from Daniel's disbarment proceedings." The number made my vision swim. 6 figures. Enough to pay off the bakery's loans twice over. And the second, I managed. He nodded toward the window, where a sleek black town car idled at the curb. "My son has been begging me to introduce you. Apparently, your karma tart has quite the reputation at his firm." The passenger window rolled down to reveal a man about my age with his father's strong jawline but infinitely kinder eyes. He held up a bakery box with a sheepish grin. I bought the last 6. Hope that's not a crime. Elena materialized beside me, flour dusting her dark curls. Oh my God, is that? Andrew Hartman Jr., Mia supplied from behind us, suddenly very interested in rearranging the cookie display. Harvard Law's youngest adjunct professor. Single, according to his Wikipedia page. Mr. Hartman Sr. cleared his throat. I'll just wait in the car. The holidays passed in a blur of sugar and surprising contentment. Andrew became a regular, always arriving just before closing with increasingly terrible legal puns. What do you call a dishonest baker? A crook, i.e. New Year's Eve found the 4 of us, me, Mia, Elena, and Sophie, camped in the bakery's tiny office, passing around a bottle of champagne as we reviewed the numbers. We did it, Mia announced, tapping her calculator. First quarter in the black. By a lot. Elena hooped, nearly knocking over her glass. To taking a cheating bastard for every penny. We clinked glasses just as the back door creaked open. Daniel stood in the doorway, snow melting in his unkempt hair. He looked years older, his once pristine coat now frayed at the cuffs. Silence descended like a guillotine. Sophie's hand crept toward her phone. Mia positioned herself between us. But all I felt was nothing. No anger. No hurt. Just vague pity, like for a stray dog that kept returning to the house where it had been kicked. Daniel's bloodshot eyes darted around the room before landing on me. I just wanted to say, save it. Elena cut in. The cameras are rolling, and we all know you only perform with an audience. He flinched but didn't leave. I'm sober now, going to meetings and everything. I study the man I'd once promised forever to. The man who'd reduced my dreams to PowerPoint jokes. Who'd stolen not just money but years of my life. I'm glad, I said finally, and meant it. Daniel's shoulders sagged. That's it? After everything. I stood, walking past him to prop open the back door. The winter air rushed in, crisp and clean. Happy New Year, Daniel. He left without another word, his footsteps disappearing into the snowy alley. Mia exhaled sharply. You okay? I turned back to my friends, to the bakery we'd built from ashes, to the life I'd reclaimed one recipe at a time. Outside, the first fireworks of the new year burst over the Chicago skyline, painting everything in fleeting, brilliant light. Yeah, I said, reaching for my champagne. I really am. The clock struck midnight. Somewhere across town, Daniel was probably drowning his sorrows. Across the city, Andrew was likely giving some stuffy lecture on corporate ethics. And right here, in this flour-dusted kitchen that smelled of possibility, 4 women clinked their glasses together, not to the past, but to whatever came next. Sophie grinned, holding up her phone to capture the moment. Say cheesecake! And we did. The recipe for moving on. Valentine's Day at Wildflower looked like a bomb had gone off in a sugar factory. Pink frosting smeared the walls where Sophie had attempted a romantic mural of cupids that now resembled angry cherubs with weapons. Heart-shaped cookies covered every flat surface, each one painstakingly iced with sassy sayings like "Love stinks" and "My cat is my Valentine." I was wrist-deep in molten chocolate when the email notification popped up on my laptop. The subject line made my piping hand slip. The Today Show, segment request. Mia, who'd been arranging a tower of Bitter X brownies, froze when she saw my face. What? Who died? I turned the screen toward her. They want me on next week. To talk about everything. The room went silent except for the hum of the industrial mixer. Elena paused mid-dough roll, flour dusting her eyebrows like premature gray hair. Sophie's phone hit the floor with a clatter. You're doing it, right? Sophie demanded, already pulling up outfit ideas on her phone. This is like free national advertising. I stared at the email, my stomach churning. Going public meant really being done. No more hiding, no more carefully curated social media posts that glossed over the messy parts. It meant strangers dissecting my marriage, my choices, my breakdown sophomore year that Daniel had threatened to expose. Elena wiped her hands on her apron and came to stand beside me. You don't owe anyone your story, she said quietly. But if you want to tell it. She nudged the laptop. This is one hell of a microphone. The green room at the Today show smelled like coffee and hairspray. I sat stiffly on a couch, my palms sweating against the wildflower apron I decided to wear as armor. Across from me, a perky production assistant adjusted my mic pack. "Just be yourself," she chirped, as if that wasn't the most terrifying instruction imaginable. Mia squeezed my hand. "Remember, you're not the villain here. You're the one who got away." The segment producer popped her head in. 5 minutes, Lila." I took a shaky breath and pulled out my phone. One last text to Andrew, who'd sent me off this morning with a kiss and a box of Nervous Nelly macarons. Me, if I throw up on national television, promise to still love me? His reply came instantly, "Only if it's on Al Roker. He's a national treasure." The laugh that bubbled up carried me all the way to the set. The lights were brighter than I expected, the chair oddly comfortable. Hoda Kotb's smile genuinely warm as she leaned forward. "So," she began, "your bakery's tagline is made with love, spite, and everything nice. Where does that come from?" And so I told them about the birthday dinner, about the airdrop heard round Chicago, about the stolen recipes and the luxe apartment, and the moment I realized my worth wasn't tied to someone else's opinion. When Hoda asked about Daniel, I didn't flinch. Some people come into your life to teach you how strong you can be when they're gone. The studio audience erupted in applause. Backstage, Mia and Sophie were ugly crying into each other's shoulders. Then came the question I dreaded. What would you say to women watching who feel stuck in their own versions of your story? I thought of the lonely nights kneading dough at 3 a.m., of Elena's unexpected friendship, of Andrew showing up with legal textbooks and terrible puns when the bakery inspections got overwhelming. "Bring your own measuring cups," I said finally, "because no one else gets to decide what makes your life full." By the time we landed back in Chicago, Wildflower's Instagram had gained 50K new followers. Our online orders had crashed the website, and a publisher had emailed about a potential cookbook deal. Andrew met us at baggage claim, his arms full of flowers and a knowing smile. "Well," I held up my phone where the segment was already going viral. I may have accidentally started a movement. He kissed my flour-dusted forehead. About damn time. That night, as the bakery quieted and the ovens cooled, I sat alone at the counter with Grandma's recipe box. The cards were worn at the edges now, some stained with new memories alongside the old. I added one more to the collection, a simple sugar cookie recipe titled Starting Over. The instructions were short. Preheat life to whatever temperature scares you just enough. Mix mistakes with forgiveness until lumps disappear. Bake until golden. Share generously. Outside, the first snowflakes of another Chicago winter began to fall. Inside, the bakery hummed with warmth and possibility, a life measured not in what was taken, but in all I'd chosen to keep. The last airdrop. 1 year to the day after that disastrous birthday dinner, I stood in front of Wildflower's newly expanded storefront, watching as the morning sun glinted off the freshly painted sign. The line already stretched down the block, not just for our famous Karma tarts, but for what we were about to do. Elena bumped my shoulder with hers, balancing a stack of pastry boxes. "Nervous!" I adjusted the microphone headset. "Terrified!" Mia shoved a latte into my free hand. "Good. That means it matters." At exactly 8:03 a.m., the same time I'd sent that first airdrop, I stepped onto the little stage we'd set up on the sidewalk. The crowd quieted. Camera phones lifted like a sea of tiny mirrors reflecting my own nervous smile back at me. "Most of you know how this bakery started," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "With a stolen dream and a very public revenge plot." Laughter rippled through the crowd. A woman in front held up her phone, showing the still viral Today show clip. "But today isn't about me." I gestured to the team behind me, Elena dusted in flour, Mia in her power blazer, Sophie live streaming as always. "It's about paying forward every bit of help that got us here." I nodded to Andrew, who stood by the shiny new display case we'd installed just for this moment. With a dramatic flourish, he pulled off the covering to reveal not pastries, but stacks of sleek USB drives shaped like tiny rolling pins. "Inside each of these," I announced, "is every recipe that made Wildflower a success. The caramel sauce that won us Best of Chicago. The legal brief puff pastry." I paused. "Even Grandma's bourbon pecan pie." The crowd murmured in surprise. A food blogger near the front actually dropped her coffee. Sophie zoomed in on my face as I continued. We're also including something more important, legal templates for fighting financial abuse. Contacts for organizations that helped me. And I took a deep breath. The full, unedited recording of what really happened that night. Elena stepped forward, her voice rough with emotion. Consider it an airdrop to every woman who's ever been told she's crazy for dreaming bigger. The applause was deafening. By noon, every USB drive had been claimed. By evening, #wildflower recipes was trending nationally. And by closing time, my phone buzzed with a notification I never expected to see. A wire transfer from an anonymous donor for exactly $20,000, with the memo, "Pay it forward." As I locked up that night, I noticed a familiar figure lingering across the street. Daniel looked thinner, his once immaculate coat now frayed at the cuffs. Our eyes met through the flour-smudged window. For a heartbeat, I considered inviting him in, offering coffee, maybe even forgiveness. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the Chicago twilight like a ghost finally laid to rest. Inside the bakery, Andrew was already stacking chairs while Mia and Elena argued over tomorrow's specials. Sophie's laughter echoed from the kitchen, where she was undoubtedly filming some ridiculous TikTok trend. I took one last look around, at the flour dusting every surface like snowfall, at the framed Today Show photo beside Grandma's recipe box, at the life I'd built from crumbs and courage, and smiled. Some recipes, it turns out, are meant to be shared. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and tag someone who needs a reminder of their own strength. And tell us in the comments, what's one dream you're finally ready to pursue? This is your sign to go for it.